This all started a few summers ago, back when I was still living with my parents in the same childhood home I grew up in. I was 17 then, just about to step into that stage where you're not really a kid anymore, but you're not exactly independent either. That particular weekend was strange and unusual, even. My parents had decided to go away for a few days, alone, together, and without me. That might sound normal, but in our house, it wasn't. My parents weren't the kind of people who took trips or spontaneous breaks. They were homebodies, always cleaning, fixing, or keeping things in order. In fact, in all my years of living there, I couldn't recall a single time they'd both been gone at the same time, not once. So, when that rare opportunity came, you better believe I wanted to make the most of it. Naturally, I called over MJ, my girlfriend at the time. We'd been dating for a while, and having the entire house to ourselves for the weekend felt like some once-in-a-lifetime chance. No rules, no parents, just us. Now, MJ had this mischievous spark to her, playful, adventurous, sometimes reckless. Honestly, that's part of what drew me to her. Though, if I'm being real, it was also one of the reasons things between us eventually fell apart. But that's a story for another time. Anyway, as soon as she spotted the backyard pool glowing under the summer night sky, I saw that familiar glint in her eyes. She smirked, then told me we should skinny dip. Just like that, no hesitation, no second thought. I laughed it off at first. I told her my neighbors might see, but she kept pestering me, teasing me, pointing out that we'd probably never get another chance like this again. And she wasn't wrong. We'd been swimming plenty of times before, but never like this. Never something so daring, so reckless. I'd always been the polite, well-behaved kid, the type who avoided trouble. Even now, sometimes I criticize myself for being too nice. So, yeah, it took a lot of convincing, but MJ had this way about her. Her excitement was contagious, and before long, I gave in. We slipped into the water under the stars, laughing, splashing, and trying not to think about how dumb it probably was. To be fair, it was kind of romantic, cheesy as that sounds. The pool was warm, the night air was cool, and for a while, everything just felt perfect, almost unreal. Now, let me paint a picture of the setup. My house had these large bay windows in the living room that looked directly out onto the pool. Since the house lights were still on, and outside was dark, we had this clear view of the inside from where we floated. It was like staring into an lit-up dollhouse, strange, but comforting. That comfort didn't last. MJ was mid-conversation when my eyes drifted up toward the living room windows, and that's when I froze. My chest tightened instantly. I saw a shadow. It was faint, but unmistakable, someone's shadow moving across one of the far walls inside the house. And it wasn't just my imagination. It moved with intention, like a person walking deeper into the room. My stomach dropped. Every instinct screamed danger. But I didn't want to alarm MJ, so I leaned toward her and whispered that we needed to get out of the pool. Quietly, she didn't argue. The playful sparkle in her eyes vanished, replaced by fear. She followed me out quickly, shivering, dripping water, but staying quiet. I told her to slip into the pool house, turn off the light, and stay there until I came back. She nodded, not saying a word. Meanwhile, I made my way to the back door, heart racing, trying not to make a sound. I stepped into the kitchen and grabbed the first weapon I could find, a kitchen knife. The whole house felt different now, off. There were small, subtle signs everywhere, things I couldn't explain. A chair slightly pulled out, like someone had been sitting there. A picture frame on the wall tilted at an odd angle. A coffee mug on the counter that I knew I hadn't used. Whoever was in my house hadn't just broken in. They'd been moving around, living in it, almost. I tightened my grip on the knife and moved from room to room, expecting someone to jump out at me any second. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it echoed in my ears. But I found nothing. Every window was locked. Every door was secure. no shattered glass, no pried open locks. It didn't make sense. If someone was in here, how had they gotten in, and where were they hiding now? By the time I finished checking, my nerves were shredded. Whatever bravado I'd built up as the man of the house was gone. Finally, I gave in and called the police. They arrived fast, two officers with flashlights combing through the house and the backyard. But just like me, they found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no footprints, no evidence of anyone being there at all. One officer tried to reassure me, saying maybe I'd startled whoever it was, and they ran off before we could catch them. But I wasn't convinced. It was late, too late to do much more. So, once the police left, MJ and I locked every door, barricaded the bedroom, and tried to sleep. Around 4 a.m., I woke to the sound of creaking floorboards above us. My heart sank instantly. At first, I thought maybe I was imagining it, still jumpy from earlier. But the sounds were clear, deliberate footsteps. Someone was moving upstairs. I lay there frozen, listening. The creaking moved closer, then shifted downward, the sound of someone carefully walking down the stairs. That was enough. I grabbed the knife from the knit stand, told MJ to stay put, and bolted out of the room. I moved fast, adrenaline surging, but by the time I reached the front door, it was wide open. Whoever had been inside was gone. I didn't even bother calling the police again. What would have been the point? I shut the door, locked it, double-checked every window, then crawled back into bed. The next morning, the reality of it all hit me. Someone had been in my house for hours. They hadn't just broken in to steal, at least, not in the usual way. They'd taken smaller items, a little cash, a few watches, some random electronics. But that wasn't what scared me. What terrified me was that every single kitchen knife was gone. Not a single one was left. It felt intentional, like a message, a warning. I just couldn't figure out what it meant. When my parents got home, I told them everything. To my surprise, they were more understanding than I expected. Maybe they saw how shaken I was. And though I like to think I'm not easily scared, I'll admit that night stuck with me. Even now, I still wonder, how did they get in? Where did they hide while the police were searching? And why? Why the knives? Some things never leave you. That night was one of them. Fast forward a year or so, and this next story takes place at Rowan University during one of the campus's biggest events, Holly Bash. For anyone unfamiliar, Holly Bash is basically Rowan's version of a spring festival, a mini Coachella with carnival rides, food trucks, lawn games, and a concert with a surprise headliner. The entire campus turns up, and it's always chaotic, loud, and full of energy. I was a sophomore at the time, and I stayed out later than I probably should have. The campus itself is in a quiet suburban neighborhood, so even at 2 a.m., it doesn't feel particularly dangerous. I left my friend's dorm and started walking back to Chestnut Hall alone, assuming it would be a straightforward walk. What I didn't know was that earlier that night, around 12:30 a.m., a group of about 10 masked people had been seen going around the campus, banging on doors and riding bikes. Some of them even appeared outside Chestnut Hall. I didn't witness it firsthand, but by the time I was walking back, people were posting online about it, warning others. At around 30 a.m., I swiped into Chestnut Hall and headed toward the stairs when something immediately caught my attention. A person was sitting in the lounge, but it wasn't just anyone, it was a man in a full black ski mask. Not a typical face covering, but a complete mask that left no features visible. I froze. At first, I tried to rationalize it. It's a dorm, people stay up late, I told myself. But he wasn't doing anything, just sitting, completely still. And then, in one sudden motion, he jumped up and turned toward me. I didn't hesitate. My fight-or-flight instincts kicked in, and I ran down the hall into the nearest bathroom and locked the door behind me. My heart was racing so hard I could feel it in my throat. I stayed there for at least 5 minutes, listening. The hallway had gone completely silent. My brain was screaming at me, warning me this wasn't normal. Eventually, I cracked the door, just enough to peek out. No one. I thought maybe he had left. I stepped out, trying to keep calm, moving slowly toward another exit. That's when I saw him again, still in the lounge, still masked. This time, he was directly across from the door I had to walk through. His bike was leaned against the doorway, and a chair had been wedged between the wall and frame, like it had been deliberately placed to block anyone from passing easily. I had pepper spray on my keychain. I didn't aim it, didn't threaten him. I just held it up, hoping it would be enough to show I was ready if he tried anything. My heart was hammering in my chest. Slowly, I walked past him. He didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't even react. It was like he wanted me to see him, like my fear was part of the game. I pushed the other door open and got out. My relief was brief. Halfway to Magnolia Street, I heard the sound of bikes behind me. 3 more masked individuals had appeared, riding alongside me. They didn't touch me, but their presence was unnerving. Some of them were waving what looked like guns, real or fake. I couldn't tell, but it was clearly meant to intimidate me. I ignored them as best I could and walked faster. Reaching Magnolia, I texted a friend to meet me outside. He did, and we walked back together. By then, the bikers were gone. I didn't call the police that night. I wasn't hurt, but I was genuinely shaken. The next morning, I told my mom everything. She reported the incident, and soon after, some of my guy friends texted me. Apparently, they had been approached by the same group. A few had guns pointed at them, but thankfully no one was hurt. After that, campus police took it seriously, patrolling the area more heavily for a while. Even now, I still have no idea who those guys were. Some rumors suggested local kids trying to scare students, but the fact that some carried guns makes it clear they weren't messing around. Whatever it was, it left me cautious, scared to walk alone at night on campus. And then there's the story involving Amanda. This one happened 2 summers ago, while we were still dating. I'd kept it quiet for a long time, not because I was embarrassed, but because I didn't want to put her or her family at risk. Amanda was working as a camp counselor that summer, at a program in the city. Her house wasn't close to the city, about a 25-minute drive from her wealthy suburban neighborhood. She loved the job, and though I didn't fully understand her attachment to it, I respected it. Her family's house was massive, 3 stories, huge yard, high ceilings, plenty of space to host any party you could imagine. When the counselors decided to throw an end-of-summer party, her house was the obvious choice. It was packed, dozens of people crowded inside, spilling out into the backyard. Most guests were friendly and laid back, but there was one guy who immediately rubbed me the wrong way. Pete. Loud, overconfident, and far too attentive to Amanda. It wasn't small talk, it was obvious flirting. Normally, I would have confronted him, but I didn't want to start a scene. Amanda and I had our trust issues. She had a habit of being a little too friendly with other guys, and I knew confronting Pete directly would have made things worse. Instead, I decided to handle it my own way. I started being overly friendly toward him, offering drinks, chatting, joking. I wanted him to get distracted, maybe make a fool of himself. My tolerance for alcohol was high, thanks to my Irish-Mexican heritage, so I could keep my composure while letting him spiral. By midnight, my plan had worked. Pete was passed out on the basement couch, drooling into a pillow. Amanda saw right through me and called me out, accusing me of intentionally getting him drunk. We argued briefly, but resolved it. The incident put a damper on the night, but nothing catastrophic happened, just a minor domestic spat among friends at a wild party. Later that night, I stepped outside for some air, away from the noise. That's when I noticed a figure standing at the far edge of the property, motionless, dimly lit by a street lamp. Tall, silent. I squinted, trying to make out who it was, but they didn't move. I decided to approach, thinking maybe I could scare off some stranger. "Hey, can I help you?" I asked, trying to sound confident. The figure took a few slow steps forward, then stopped. It was a man. I couldn't see his face clearly. He asked a single question. "Are your parents home?" Something about his tone. It was as if he already knew the answer. When he repeated the question, dropping Amanda's parents' names, my unease skyrocketed. I lied, saying my parents were inside. Though a part of me doubted, he believed me. He simply nodded, said okay, and walked away straight down the street, disappearing into the darkness. It was unsettling, but I tried to shrug it off. I went back inside, playing ping pong in the basement, keeping an ear open for anything suspicious. By the time I realized what was happening at Amanda's house, the party was in full swing. Music blared upstairs, laughter echoed through the halls, and dozens of teenagers milled about like chaos incarnate. I had stayed in the basement mostly, trying to enjoy the quieter side of the house, but now my instincts screamed that something was off. The doorbell rang. Ordinarily, that would have been no big deal, people come and go during a party, but my subconscious instantly registered the inconsistency. Amanda had instructed everyone to use the back door. The front door wasn't supposed to ring at all. I excused myself from the basement game and made my way upstairs. As I passed Amanda's room, I noticed her completely passed out on her bed, oblivious to everything happening around her. That confirmed that I was probably the only semi-sober person left in the house. When I reached the front door, a girl named Bella was standing there, looking drunk and disoriented. I asked her who had rung the bell. Her reply was barely coherent. Some older man, claiming to be a family friend, needed to return something he had borrowed. I froze. "You let him in," I demanded. She just shrugged and wandered off, likely off to find someone else to entertain or flirt with. Meanwhile, my gut told me we had a real problem. I ran upstairs to Amanda's parents' room, and my worst fears were confirmed. Drawers had been pulled open, jewelry boxes emptied, closets rifled through. The man had robbed them. Everything seemed targeted, not random. It wasn't just petty theft, it was precise, methodical. Whoever he was, he knew exactly what to take. I was about to head back downstairs to assess the rest of the house when something in the mirror on the back of the door caught my eye. A flicker, a shadow moving just out of view. Before I could react, he tackled me. The force knocked the wind out of me as we crashed to the floor. I struggled to breathe while he clawed at my shirt, trying to rip it off. Panic surged, adrenaline pumping through my veins. I pushed him off with everything I had, though it was more fear than strength, and he bolted. He sprinted across the room, dove out an open window, and landed on the roof with a thud. I reached the window, just in time to see him drop into the side yard and disappear into the darkness. I didn't chase him. I couldn't have caught him anyway. The damage was done. I caught my breath and tried to process what had happened. Jewelry gone, drawers emptied, and someone had physically attacked me. The adrenaline kept me from feeling the full weight of fear until after the fact. I went downstairs, reluctantly deciding to call the police, not because I expected much, but because someone had to clear the house. The local officers arrived, familiar with Amanda's family, and helped escort everyone out safely. Meanwhile, Pete, passed out on the basement couch from earlier, was woken up, utterly groggy and disoriented. I told him he needed to find a way home immediately. He ended up vomiting before ordering an Uber. The next morning, Amanda had to tell her parents. They were furious, as anyone would be, but true to form, Amanda barely seemed fazed. Her rebellious streak never failed to shock me. The house had no cameras, and her parents figured calling the police would be pointless. Some of their valuables were gone, but the lack of concrete evidence meant nothing would likely come of it. Even now, I can't shake the question, how did he know her parents weren't home? Was he a family friend? Someone who had scouted the house in advance? I may never know. Looking back, The night revealed more than just an attempted robbery. It revealed Amanda her indifference, carelessness, and the subtle signals I should have heeded sooner. Hindsight is always 20/20th, but even then, small red flags were there, waving clearly, if I'd only been paying attention. That night stayed with me for months, the fear of someone physically present in a house I assumed was safe. It's different from anything else. There's a lingering tension, a sense that the world isn't as secure as you thought it was. Even the smallest noise is creaking floors. Shifting shadows can trigger a flash of panic. What makes this series of events even stranger is the pattern. First, my own childhood home, someone sneaking in, vanishing without a trace, knives gone. Then, college campus, masked strangers, intimidation, fear on a quiet suburban street. Finally, Amanda's house targeted robbery, physical confrontation, escape. Each event shared a common thread: intrusion, unpredictability, and a chilling sense of someone observing, planning, and moving unseen. You realize, after experiences like these, that fear isn't always loud or violent. Sometimes, it's quiet, creeping into the corners of your mind, making you question every sound, every shadow, every stranger. And it lingers long after the moments pass. Even now, I can recount every detail: the layout of my pool, the way MJ's eyes lit up, the exact sequence of creaking floorboards, the masked figures on campus, Pete passed out in the basement, the robbery at Amanda's house, like a horror movie playing on repeat in my mind. And yet, life continues. Classes, friends, parties, the ordinary routines. But that awareness, that edge of caution, never leaves. Every locked door, every glance over the shoulder, every unexpected sound reminds you, some things are beyond your control. The only comfort is preparation and awareness. Being vigilant, staying calm under pressure, trusting your instincts. These events taught me that in every ordinary setting, a family home, a college dorm, a friend's party, extraordinary danger can appear, completely unexpected. I never fully figured out the identities of those masked strangers, the person in my house, or the robber at Amanda's, and maybe I never will, but the lessons remain. Trust your instincts, respect red flags, and never assume safety is guaranteed, no matter how familiar the surroundings seem. Even today, when I walk past an empty backyard or hear a creak in the night, memories of those summers flash in my mind. Each event: MJ in the pool, the bikers on campus, the confrontation at Amanda's, serves as a reminder that life is unpredictable. And sometimes, the scariest experiences come not from what's visible, but what's unseen. Some things stick with you forever. These are a few of mine. If you enjoyed these chilling true stories and want to hear more that will keep you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story.